And we'll be live momentarily.
I don't see notification. Okay. Oh, there we go. Now notifications on.
Can you not tell me this is not the cool?
Okay, let me send this to my aunt. Damn it. Was that you? No, that's not you. Your thing didn't come up.
Don't you know what's happening? 901.
It's on. It's on. Yeah, it's
Here
on.
we are. So exciting.
Yes, it's so exciting. And so shout out to Aunt Debbie who's watching us as soon as she clicks this link on her phone. Hopefully she knows how, but I'm just saying. All right.
Got quite a bit to discuss today because, Trump keeps us busy.
Where's the intro?
Um,
You don't need to do any
should
more?
I do the intro?
Welcome to the Tank Tank. I'm Dion.
Oh no, I was getting everybody. No, no. Oh, I was waiting. No, no. I'm waiting to make sure that everybody gets it before we get started. If anybody's coming, I want them to be able to. I want to wait a few minutes. I don't want to jump right in right after logging in.
Okay.
So I'm gonna
Well,
give
let
people a
me
couple
share
of
this
minutes,
link.
and then yeah, that's gonna be my thing for lives. Give a couple of minutes before we start, you
Okay.
know, and then we can go in and go ham because a lot to talk about. It's a busy week.
Well,
When is it not at, I do believe she calls it, Miss Levitt, Trump speed. What time is it?
yeah, Caroline's
Give
for
it another minute. I, because there's so much to talk about, I didn't even make a big list because we'll go till midnight. We'll go till midnight. We're going to talk about some of the crazy things going on. I didn't even get my notification yet.
maybe you have to go to your actual YouTube. I mean, or if
Oh,
you're
I'm
on the,
here. That's the annoying part.
maybe you're on the administrator, but look at your, well, I just said it in my Facebook.
I wanted to do the same thing, but
Where about the austerity family?
this is weird.
Hey, there
Let
goes,
me just.
there goes that.
I don't even see it on your Facebook.
Right, because I put in my group and I'm sharing it from our group to hopefully get people to come into my group. All right, there goes
Ah,
that. There goes that. All right. I'm ready to be welcomed to the thing today.
give me one more minute. And it would be easier if I did see it myself, but I don't.
You want me to text it to you?
The fact that I can't find my own channel is disturbing. No, we're gonna just get started because I'm just gonna get ahead and get ready to get started. Like I said, I'm actually waiting to see if anybody else was coming. I don't want to but we're gonna go ahead and get started. Okay. Because it is going to be recorded. So I want people to not lose interest and click off before. So I give people a chance to come in like all the other channels do. But we're going to rock and roll. So it is, what's today's date? The 30th, right?
No.
The 27th still? All right, boom.
Yes.
Nah, moving at Trump speed. It seems like time just keep going faster and faster. It's Sunday, April 27th, 2025, and welcome to the Think Tank, where we use critical thinking, deductive reasoning, just a pinch of common sense to draw unbiased logical conclusions. Today, we welcome back friend of the channel who loves to visit, comes quite often, the Honorable Dion Powell, hailing from Bronx, New York.
The Bronx, New York.
You want to give them a little bit about yourself before we dig in?
Well, today you get to see the Baldy and not one of my stylish hats. But I'm trying to be known for the glasses look in the political realm. The usual content and then be undercover in real life. I'm District Leader Dion Powell here in the 78th Assembly District of the Bronx, New York. I'm a consultant. I do campaigns right now and certain political work, as well as businesses, nonprofits, faith-based organizations, and special interest groups. I worked for Biden Harris in 2020 on a contract. I worked for Kennedy for his PAC, American Values 2024, as low as, simple city council races, my friend Joel Rivera. And as you may or may not know by now, I'm with the Black MAGA. So shout out to the Secretary of HUD, who hopefully I'll be hanging out with tomorrow, that brother, as well as they say, the only Black person in the cabinet. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Back to you, Elsie.
Well, dealing in the film realm, I've been the only Black person in the room a lot. I
Black
get that
face and
feeling.
that face.
All right, so here on this channel, we dig in with Dion, the Honorable Dion Powell, about politics. As a Black MAGA man, he has very strong opinions. I like to push back because you need to hear both sides. You listen to Fox News, you listen to CNN, you're gonna get either the right, you're gonna get the left. You're not gonna get somebody trying to tell you the truth. You're gonna get somebody trying to pull you their way. You might get the same thing here, but at least I try and balance it out. I try and keep it so that you can get a real sense of what's going on rather than being pulled in one direction too much. So, but the Black MAGA man, he's gonna give it to you, which is good
I'm
because
very rare in this industry to find a Black MAGA supporter from New York in your face to give her. And I just want to give a shout out. I am wearing the American Values, the Blacks Back Bobby t-shirt when we had it with the pack back in the day to show that he had lots of support from the African American community in America. So when we get to the Kennedy piece, full disclosure, me, I was in that realm on the payroll, and I love that guy.
I don't have a problem with him. Some of his ways we will discuss.
Um,
So, as, as we kick it about this, I just, with full disclosure, me and Dion are friends, been friends for years, but we kind of like take the gloves off when we get in the ring. Our sparring matches sometimes get a little head testy, and I'm talking verbal debating on this channel sparring, not lacing up for anybody who knows me from back in the days. So here we have it. We're going to get started. Let's start with, we got a whole list of stuff. Today's going to be short because a lot happened. All right. Canada candidates are banking their campaigns on how to deal with Trump. So there's an election going on in Canada for the big seat, if anybody didn't know, right? Prime Minister, whatever it's called, and the big C. And both candidates are running their campaign on how they're going to deal with their neighbor who suddenly flipped the script. When we were best of friends, they even supplied parts of the country electricity. And now we're going to tariff the electricity they supply, as well as cars and on stacked on top of, which means the taxes, the tariffs, which is a tax from on another country's goods when it's imported. That's what a tariff is. It's a tax on another country's good when it's imported. And they're stacking taxes. You get a 10% across the board, 25% on auto, aluminum, tinfoil, whatever, steel. You got, how are you going to tax the energy that they're supplying you? What if they're like, we just going to cut you off, which was talked about quite a bit. So this is the reason I love Dion is because when people think MAGA, they think of some hillbilly out in the country with no shoes on his feet and two teeth. Here's an educated Black man from New York, so he can give
in
it
the
to
hood, but
you.
not from the hood. So I'm not one of those black little conservatives as you see, as you think of the Carlson Banks. You know what I mean? So I can give you a
Halton
little street
Banks,
level point of view and vernacular as needed.
street level and vernacular.
Spectacular vernacular.
Oh, all right. Why? What is happening with this, man? Like Trump is hitting
Well,
our neighbors, bro.
just like all these other elections here, especially the infighting with the Democratic Party, everybody's platform has to be around how are you going to take down Trump? What are you going to do with Trump? Oh my God. But if you remember the predecessor, Trudeau, if you speak the French, I don't, he actually was a big Trump critic, but because Canada is nicely destroyed, just like America with this migrant problem and other things putting pressure, he too was forced out, but had to go down to Mar-a-Lago to have a conversation with Uncle Trump, but it didn't work out. So, like all things with the parliamentary procedures, shout out to my organization, the National Association of Parliamentarians, Robert's Rules. They have to make some tough choices between the liberal candidates and the conservative candidates because globally, this evil right wing conspiracy against migration internationally and all this other racism stuff, it seems that all these countries are realizing, hey, that's not cool. So now this right extremism disease from all these northern European countries like Norway and Germany and so forth is spreading. Even Italy's taking over by the right extremists. And some people believe in Canada it might be so, and they're gonna be another friend of Trump. So that's what I think because people are tired of these politicians blaming all their personal problems on Uncle Trump. So we'll see. But when it comes
Well,
to tariffs, that's the negotiating tool that President Trump is using. Because as you can see now, China has put a 90% tariff on our oil, and they're getting it from Canada. So now Canada is showing its ass of loyalty to America. Well, we'll see what happens then. So let's see if that segues. Back to you, LC.
but liberal or conservative, they're banking their campaign on who is going to deal with Trump's BS better. That's basically what it's boiled down to.
Well,
So
again, the
even the
liberals.
conservatives are not with Trump.
Well, let's think about this critically, right? The liberals have been controlling Canada for what amount of years through Trudeau, and no things has failed, especially when it came to the COVID lockdown, the COVID vaccine mandates. They went with that, and neither is President Trump. So now it's looking like the conservatives have more support, whereas the liberals, some people will argue in terms of poverty, in terms of migrant influx and infrastructure and safety, they're not looking too good, just like the liberal progressives here in America downstairs from Canada.
Even the conservatives are not with Trump. They're not talking about joining America. that's so basically as a MAGA supporter, you're still loving the relationship in the condition that it's in with America from Canada. You're loving
Oh,
what's going on.
well, I like the thing is where Trump, of course, as always, is shaking things up and exposing a lot of people and things and systems. So the power of the tariff as a negotiation and bargaining tool is something in which we have to see if people want to see Trump win or lose, or people want to see X countries win or lose. Because remember, if Trump wins or loses, that may help us instead of saying, "Oh no, China's winning" and rooting for China. That's not a good look in terms of our patriotism. And on the same token, I'm not good bigger economics. I always use that disclaimer, but reciprocal tariffs sound about right. America is the number one contract in the world. We put and invest more money in other countries now more so than our own infrastructure, which is not cool. So to say that, hey, we don't make sure the tariffs you put on our products are the same tariffs that we put on your products because so far right now it's been a one-way street. We're paying so much into your country with your tariffs. You're not paying much money into our country with our tariffs, and that's got to stop, especially under President Trump.
So you haven't been paying attention to the news for the last, like, I don't know, 2 months, where they've explained on a continuous basis that's not what happened. As a matter of fact, he went from talking about reciprocal tariffs to trade deficits, where it's like, oh, well, we buy more from you, so we're going to give you more tariffs. That's what a trade deficit is. Because we buy more from them, he wants to give them tariffs. What? Because we buy more from them, we have to put tariff. They got to pay tariffs now. Like, just don't buy, or piss off the people that's supplying the goods that we need. That's not smart. That's not
The
smart.
smart thing is we don't want to be dependent. We want to be self-sufficient. So depending on China for every little thing is bad. But as you can see that the mainstream media is not focusing on, that's why I trust Google paying
Hold
as
on,
much
we'll
as
get to
they can.
China. We'll get to China. We'll get to China. We'll get to China. Because that's gonna be the bulk of this conversation. We're gonna get to China. Woo! We're gonna get to China. So let's move on. You're happy with the relationship deteriorating between Canada, even though Canada is now talking about joining the EU and turning their backs on the US. and the EU is dealing with China, so we'll have to get to that later because the EU is, oh man. All right, Sussman Godfrey's fighting back. Did you get a chance to look into that?
Let's see. On the list, Godfrey, let's see. Well, refresh my memory. Is that the guy that that's the
It's
law
a
firm?
law firm or
The
something
third
like
firm. Okay,
that.
yeah, yeah. So, oh, excuse me, family. I'm sorry about that. Basically, Trump is an administration is protecting itself. You know, whether you agree with it or not, whether it's ethical or not, they're trying to, let's see if I can find it. I had it.
Executive orders,
Yeah, yeah. He's trying
barring law firms.
yeah, refresh the audience's memory as I look at my notes here. Go ahead, Leo. Refresh the audience's memory on the subject matter.
I want to get it right too because we have quite a bit going on. Let me see. Sussman Godfrey.
Yeah, that was the first thing that you had here. Oh, here it is on this other tab. Let's see. Yes, this is the Dominion voting booths. So basically, to my understanding, in 2020 and beyond, the Trump election integrity, he's very big on that. And that's also an entity I know about too on this side, in which they're trying to protect sorry, all these computerized systems of voting and transparency. So the Dominion contractor was accused of a lot of things that Newsmax and Fox News was able to prove. So that was a liability issue in which they want to take out lawsuits against Trump's administration, Trump himself, and these other major news outlets. Just like George Stephanopoulos and the rest of the gang that kept liable slandering Trump during their stuff, Trump is winning his lawsuits with them. So it's the same tit for tat. Whether I agree with it or not is one thing, but basically Trump is trying to protect themselves. If they have something there, probably so. It's up to them. But he's just trying to expose the outward appearance of election interference by having electronic voting systems. Whereas back today, when it's paper ballots, which he's trying to go back to, you could have the presidential election results the same night as opposed to days later.
So, in your opinion, you're an educated man.
Am I?
In your opinion, paper ballots are safer than electronic ballots when paper ballots could just as easily, I don't know, boxes of them could disappear or something like that?
Well, again, that's why in 2020, the president actually feels as though that election was stolen from him. Because remember, that's when they had all the mail-in ballots increase exponentially because of the COVID, and they were finding boxes of absentee ballots here and there. That's why there's certain lawsuits on the right side they're winning right now in certain states. But yes, once again, like I said before, these computerized systems being hacked and influenced from outside sources is a big issue, whereas paper ballots didn't have that problem. But you're right. Sure, boxes of Democrat ballots could be found over there. A box of Republican ballots, which has happened too, could be found over there. But that's why President Trump's election integrity, I forget the last part of that entity was called. That's what they're trying to be on top of. But this is a federal issue. Locally on the state side for their elections is one thing, but federally, they don't want anything computerized, which I kind of agree with.
So the person that brought in Elon Musk, who, sent all of our stuff to Russia or gave him the codes or whatever he did,
Oh boy.
said, well, listen, this was facts. These are facts.
The facts is people hate audits, and that's why the people that want to keep the system in place hate being exposed. But all the
He
waste
admitted
are
to
incredible.
it. He was like, oops.
I understand that. That was one email situation where it was a code version for certain
How the
agencies.
hell is
But
it?
on the
What does it
same
do with
other
an
side, Leo,
email?
talk about the good side of it, of Doge. On the website, doge.gov. There's no good side
I
to it?
mean, we've gone through the website extensively, and you pointed out to me all the money you said he saved. I pointed out to you where it appeared to be nonsensical to me, and at the end, the $2 trillion turned out to be 150 billion, the vast majority of which isn't going to be saved until future next year sometime, which means that he didn't do anything. Well, not in comparison to what he said he was going to do. 150 billion dollars is a lot of money. It's not $2 trillion.
Well, again, like I said in the last episode, he couldn't touch for whatever reason the military's budget was waste money for fun, especially the Navy, which you're thank you for your service from. But again, yes, those are the hyperbolic things he said. But a long story short, he did expose the wasteful spending in several federal systems in terms of grants and international spending with USAID, which Africa is very happy was shut down because that money was used to actually co-opt and circumvent their governments and also their cultures with certain agendas of America.
I do believe that it's determined by who you speak to. Because again, I spoke to people that actually do research in Africa that
I've
will
been
lose
there.
out. That will lose out. I mean, they were in Africa as I spoke to them, so I guess that counts a
Well,
little
there's
bit as
good,
being.
bad, and everything else. But again, the waste, foreign spending for experimentation to see how two frogs have a lesbian relationship. Once again, I'm just extremely hyperbolic right now. Is actually real. And like, why are we studying this area? Why is there environmental protection industry of climate change that's proved to actually do nothing to help the environment?
I did not see evidence of those claims. Now, Tesla man, Elon Musk
But
made
we do see people destroying Teslas as Tesla factories as Tesla dealerships. Why is the media not putting that on loop?
an enormous amount of ridiculous claims,
Wow,
most of
that's not
which
true. Teslas are being defaced and spray painted and keyed and stuff like that and exploding outside their Las Vegas. Do you remember when the Tesla exploded?
I do not condone attacking Teslas.
So you said it happened.
No, the first time you told me about this, I hadn't heard about it yet. And ever since then, every time it comes up, I say the same thing. I don't condone the destruction of property. As a business
Well, one
person,
of
that
our viewers who's not in the chat but WhatsApping me wants us, his name is AD, wants us to talk about Abraham Tare and also Shannon Sharp. But that's not on this to do. It's all about Donald Trump.
we'll get to. I got to get this shit in shot. Woo!
That's
Got to
not on
get
the
to him.
list. That's not on the list.
Not today. Not today.
That's your sports commentator. I mean,
All right, yo. So check it. Let's move on. Let's move on. These law firms are not capitulating, kneeling, kissing the ring, bowing down, kissing his ass. They're fighting back as
again,
they
they may
should.
have something there. They may have something there because these lawsuits have actually taken place before after he was in office. So I don't know because sometimes he likes to use things like he's immune, his immunity because he's a president. I don't know if this lawsuit would have to get pushed back until he's out of office, maybe, or then he'll pardon himself. So that's the way I see it.
Actually, he can't be sued and he can't be put in prison as the president. He can be sued civilly. He can be taken to court for money. Remember, we talked about this last episode where
Well,
he's being
again,
taken to
like I
court for.
said, I thought it would be that law firm v. the United States of America, not v. Donald Trump. You see what I'm saying? That's the technicality because he's an entity now. Like you can sue Mayor Adams, but legal counsel say you're suing the city of New York. Understand?
You can sue both. You can sue anybody. You can sue a desktop.
Doesn't mean you're going to win.
No, you probably won't win against a desktop. You're probably not going to win against Trump either. But I mean, if you're a legal entity, if you're one of the largest law firms in the country, I would assume you're not going to just let an executive order, which by its very nature has to fall within the realms of the Constitution, because that's how executive orders work, right? If it's outside of the Constitution, it's not a legal executive order. It's not a legal statute. So, and lawyers would probably know this a little bit better than me, but that's 100% a fact. And a lot of the executive orders that he signed fell outside of the boundaries of the Constitution. That's why so many of them are being challenged, and many of them are actually going to win. But I would assume that one of the biggest law firms in the country is probably going to say, "Nah, bro." I mean, I'm just saying, right? Like, hold up, I can read. Let me put my little lawyer specs on. You know what I'm saying? I'm an attorney. I know this stuff. You're a businessman, not a good one. You fail every business you do. We do this. We win cases. I'm just going to assume that they're not going to lay down for Trump, even though Trump has some of the best lawyers in the world on his side. So it'll be a battle, but at the end of the day, his executive orders are not legal. So I I'm gonna just move on to Kennedy because this is
So that's
this is where you
that's my
shine, right?
opinion of it. That's my legal interpretation of it. How about that?
All right, so you love Kennedy. You may mention it at the top of the hour, right?
Ex Bobby. Yeah.
So I happen to agree 200%, and I'm very grateful that he's making moves to get the dyes out of the food. As we talked about, every time he comes up, he's talking about poking people being the problem and finding the answers to autism. And I'm like, why don't we start with the stuff that we know causes autism, like the stuff in the food, like I don't know, the dyes, red 16 and H and yellow 4 or whatever. I don't remember the numbers and colors and all that because there's too many of them. But I think those are it's two reds and a yellow or something like that. We know for like Canada's already, California's already banned them. They're not anywhere in Europe, so Europe is like, we're not going to poison ourselves, even though the problem with that is they've taken all the stuff out, and their autism rate is the same as the United States. It's 1 in every 12,
No, whoa,
up
whoa,
from
whoa,
what?
whoa. They haven't been taken out yet. Kennedy is putting all these things now. So all stuff happening previously doesn't really count. On top of that, even though California doesn't have these dyes, they still have the worst autism rate in the country. So what could it
Ah, there's a
be?
statistic I wasn't aware of.
What could it be, Leo? And we all know too much of a good thing is bad. So don't you think there might be too many of these things going on, and that could be bad, not good?
Europe doesn't have the dyes, and they still have the autism rate, is what I was saying. So the dyes can't be the and only answer. It's just
The
otherwise
ouchies?
Europe
You
wouldn't.
said it's not the ouchies?
We might have to look at some of the
Of course.
things in the ouchies. I mean, lead is crazy. Putting lead into your body is crazy. So,
And mercury
and
and
mercury,
aluminum.
yes, and aluminum. Well, lead, and mercury. I don't know the effects of aluminum. I know lead and mercury are crazy. So Kennedy says a lot of stuff though. Like he said, when I was a kid, I didn't see people with eczema, and everybody didn't have allergies. When I was a kid, I had eczema and I had allergies.
How
Some
old
of
is
the stuff.
Kennedy? How old is you? How old are you? How old was Kennedy and how old are you? How old
Okay,
is Kennedy?
eczema. I inherited my hay fever was what my parents called it. Everybody had allergies. They called it hay fever. What are you talking about?
Okay. Well,
He's
how
bugging.
many cases? He's comparing the historical perspective. How many cases were reported then, as opposed to how many cases are reported now? Was
Hay
there the
fever. How much
same?
hay fever was there
Was
back
it
in the day?
increased? No, I'm just saying, has it increased since your age group to this age group?
Have allergies increased? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I
No.
mean, so did you have to take the little 16 shot thing where they had all the little pins on one thing and it just and
Yes,
gave
that's
you all
the
them shots?
allergy test. You have to
Okay,
take
so
that.
then allergies obviously were prevalent back then. That's the answer to
Oh,
that.
oh, that's I'm not disagreeing with that. But again, Kenny's saying, well, back then, one out of X amount of people in America had allergies, as opposed to now, where it has increased, one out of a smaller amount, just like autism, have it now. Why is that? That's all he is. He's asking questions. All a man is doing is asking questions right
Can
now.
I ask you a question? When did the rate of increase?
You mean, yes, that increased like the 70s, 80s when they made it mandatory to get the measles, mumps, and rubella, scheduled for the babies and children. That's when autism exploded after that, right? Because he said from his findings and his studies that they couldn't actually account why measles, mumps, and rubella was spreading as an epidemic, let's say in the 70s. But then once they started putting the vaccines, it started going down. But he also noticed that they started doing proper diet, hygiene, and holistic medicines during that time frame, and they didn't account for it going down because people started actually taking the cod livering oil. Children started getting it younger, and then after they had it at one time, they didn't have it for the rest of their lives. And so they realized, maybe if all of our children just play with each other and get it young, that would wipe it out with natural herd immunity as opposed to vaccines. That's all the man was saying. Well, how come it went down because of these natural remedies and taxes of proper diet, exercise, and cleanliness and hygiene, as opposed to just vaccines? Why can't we have the option of both? Because now, since we mandated this for the world, I mean, the country, just like education, which doesn't work, what's the problem, man? He just asked the question, let's explore it. But come June, he said he wants to expose it all, the epidemic of autism and vaccine injury.
Right, right, because he has answers in education.
He's asking questions. He has a system in place with the right people and tools, just like the President Trump does, to actually flush this out. Whereas Big Pharma, which was what used to be evil, to my understanding, actually is lobbying against these things. That's kind of strange.
I would push back and say that certain things might save lives.
Well, then he'll push back and say, hey, Black America, what about those Tuskegee experiments? You remember those? Well, I'm not down with those mandatory trials either. So,
Fair enough. Fair enough. I can't deny that. I'm not saying that I trust America, Big Pharma, or the country to that. I'm not saying that at all. I am saying that I would like to see results, not just because there's a thing. What is it called again? Confirmation bias, right? So what
okay.
is confirmation bias? Confirmation bias happens when is happens as people get evidence of something, and no matter what that evidence is, it supports whatever they believe, regardless of even it goes completely against it. They find a way to look at the evidence and use it to confirm whatever they believe in. Religious folk do it quite often. It's called
Well,
confirmation bias.
that's why the confirmation bias here is the entity that's saying vaccines are safe forever and ever. As Katie is saying, no, let's make it optional. How about that? But it's saying, no, it has to be mandatory. So the fact is, you have a people that's saying, hey, trust the science, and it's mandatory. And a man says, I would like to question the science and make it optional. So
Making
that's
it optional and questioning the science are not the same thing. You're using the two things in a sentence like one has something to do with the other.
yes, it does, because remember the mandatory that's safe and is great. They're also saying that, hey, you can't question this. Now, how's that sound? And if you do, we're going to make sure you're censored on your social media for questioning this. Whereas Katie's like, yes, let's question everything and make it all optional. You hear that?
Okay, so if 95% of the population doesn't have it, then you don't have herd immunity, and if you don't have herd immunity, then the is irrelevant anyway. So
But it always
basically,
was irrelevant because they told us when it first hit the streets, Dr. Fauci himself says, all you need is to be vaccinated and this whole thing will go away and you'll never catch COVID again. And guess what? He was wrong. Surprise, surprise. And then they had the mandatory boosters and they came with the newest editions for next year for Omicron version and this version. And it still
we're
doesn't.
not talking about we're not talking about Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci's a criminal, should be thrown under
We're
the
talking about
jail.
vaccines. The one if Dr. Fauci said vaccine, that would work. So if Dr. Fauci is wrong about this vaccine, what about the previous vaccines he came up with, previous presidents he worked with?
I didn't say it shouldn't be looked into. What I said is that Kennedy has a serious disposition for confirmation bias, and he is going to find vaccines to be the problem, regardless of what the science says. I 100% guarantee that.
Remember, he also said the food. That's why he started out small and methodically with the food dyes. Because vaccines he can't tackle yet. Because people like you and Big Pharma that supports and lobbies, they're trying to stop him all costs. But he's taking the low-hanging fruit, which are the dyes. He's taking the low-hanging fruits by pushing holistic medicine and fruits and vegetables and plant-based living and putting that to the forefront and vitamins and minerals and cod liver oil. And he's exposing all these things on all the websites. On top of that, there also was a press conference where he's like, yes, I will expedite the FOIA process. In case you didn't know what FOIA process is, that's the way when you get to question the government about everything. Freedom of Information Act, FOIA. So let's say somebody comes along, they FOIA the government like Kennedy did to find out, hey, I want to get all the research data of autism, and also I want to get the same schedule of autism and the same humans you study for the autism, and I want that now. Nah, we're gonna give it to you in 6 months if you remember. Kenny's like, no, you asked my office anything before, and we're going to try to expedite our process to give you the answers and the data they're in. So one of the things that the government and NIH and the Food and Drug Administration, everybody else, and HHS that they've been doing to stop people like Kennedy is they wouldn't answer his FOIA request to answer the questions that he had to help him prove his points with his biases. So if they're not going to give you the answers, like Dion had a question about abortion, I said I want to know the same woman that are complaining about infant mortality rate. I would like to know how many abortions they've had because I my sick brain of theory and ideas and critical thinking. I'm thinking that women that had a certain amount of abortions, maybe they're having a low infant mortality rate as a result of all the abortions they've had. Because in my sick brain as a non-birthing person, that actually makes sense scientifically. I could be wrong, but if I FOIA, which I can't, Planned Parenthood to give me that information, especially about Black women, to prove that they're having more abortions than babies, and as a result of so many abortions, they can't really have babies as much as they could without the abortions. Those are the questions that I like to know through a FOIA request. Back to you, Skip. I'm
Wow.
evil. I talk about abortion too.
Yeah, but you just said,
FOIA?
wow, we should, you would like to ask women how many abortions they've had. That
No, no, no,
is
no,
one of,
no. The scientific question. Because remember, you're getting two commercials now, which is women's right to choose, healthcare, and all that kind of stuff when it comes to being pro-abortion, having abortion. But then you have the next commercial saying, oh, Black women's infant mortality rates are high, and they when they have a baby, it dies, and they have a trouble time rearing and the doulas and all this other stuff. So like, wait a minute. What is the data in correlation? Because this will help women out, at least I think, to tell them not to have an abortion between a woman that has low infant mortality rate, problems getting pregnant and carrying the baby, and if they had previous abortions. That's the only data I want to see. Because if it's
so
true
what
that if you have
statistics
an
do you have that
abortion,
says that Black women are having more difficulty having babies than other races?
what?
What
That
statistic?
statistic always comes out. They always talking about the poor and affected Black women and their infant mortality rates. That's always in the freaking boom, 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 boom. And they ask the healthcare for abortions, boom, 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 boom. But what is the correlation? I'm just asking questions. So
I
far,
believe that's
Parenthood
going to
did
be a
not provide
MAGA
the
thing. I've
information.
never even, it's got to be a MAGA thing.
Yeah,
It's
but
got to
doesn't
be
that
a
make
MAGA
sense to
thing.
you, Leo? Doesn't that part of pro-life, pro-choice movement make sense if you just trying to find data? And that's what Kenny's about. FOIA, I want to know how many Black women have had abortions in this year, and I want to know how many Black women had babies this year. That's it. FOIA, Department of Health, what is the data? Nah, Planned Parenthood, we're not giving that information. Oh, really? And my tax styles are plain.
No, they're not going to give the information on how many abortions a woman had. What the hell kind of shit is that? I don't
That's
even. You
data.
did it. You got me to curse on my channel.
That's
You
but
finally
that's
did it.
data. But Leo, that's data that my tax dollars are going towards, and I have a right to question. That's it. I have the right to question how many abortions.
No, you don't have the right to question somebody's personal health. Like, yo, that's. I
That's how
understand why
you
you can
get the
forgive
HIV
Elon
data.
Musk now. Sure,
That's
just
how
give
you
the
get the
data away. It
HIV
doesn't
data,
matter. It's just people's
Leo.
personal stuff.
That's how you get the STD and STI data. The medical industry has to report the information, not where they can come out and say, hey, Black men have high HIV rates as opposed to white men. That census data has to exist.
The data has to exist, and people's personal information is not to be made public. There's something about HIPAA or HIPAA or you're wilding.
No, that's if you put the names to it. If you just put the data like grades, you see what I'm saying? X amount of students live in a school, X amount of students got this amount of grades. Well, X amount of women went to the abortion clinic, and this is their demographics. Handicap, lesbian, veteran. Where's this data at? That's it. That's the question.
I'm pretty sure on the other side, what they will tell you is Black women have very little problem having children in comparison to their white counterparts. As a matter of fact, I believe on the other side, the information goes something like Black women are having so many children in comparison to their white counterparts that white women are afraid that they're going to that white people are going to disappear because there's going to be so many Black children. I believe that's what the other side says. So I don't know where you got your information. It sounds very, 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 very MAGA to me. But I haven't heard it, so I'd have to
You care
research it
about the
for you.
black family more than the left side. Ask Margaret Thanger and whatever her name is that invented the whole Planned Parenthood eugenics process. Come
Now that is actually accurate. Yes, that Planned Parenthood was invented to try and stop. Yeah, that's true. That was invented for black people to limit the amount of children black people could have. That's actually accurate. Yes.
So what other things are they capable of? Let's say using the aborted fetuses for organ harvesting and also a gender clean so people can live forever. And also their satanic rituals. But we won't talk about those conspiracy theories because the right side were a bunch of conspiracy theorists until you prove that Joe Biden indeed was not fit to be president. They were right 4 years later.
So you just compared Joe Biden experiencing senility to people harvesting organs. Okay, let's
That's
move forward.
lies. We're just trying to expose the lies by questioning everything so you don't think we're just crazy conspiracy theorists. That's the point.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I can understand that. Your extremes are insane,
Uh,
but I mean, listen, we have this argument all the time. You say, "Oh, aborting kids at 10 months," and I'm like, "Oh, well, forcing a child that's been raped and 9 years old to have a baby," and those
So
are the
once
opposite sides of the
again,
argument.
question everything, Leo. So let's look at the data for both our points. How many people get abortions because of that scenario, and how many people get abortions from my scenario? What's the data? That's it. So you could say, well, Dio,
Let's
look at
ask Google right quick.
this. No, I don't think Google's gonna know because Planned Parenthood won't make that public ever. How many people have abortions because they were 9 years old, etc.? How many people have abortions up to 9, 10, 8, 11 months? And those kind of reproductive rights. Because guess what, Leo? Even according to you, we don't have a right to know because that's none of our business, even though our tax dollars pay for it. Now, am I pro-life? Yes. Pro-choice, whatever. But the point is this: neither of these sentences I said should say abortion should be legal or eliminated, whatever the case may be. And there's something called the whole life Democrats. When I was a dino, that's something I was down with. So look up whole life Democrats because they believe 1 out of 3 Democrats is actually pro-life, but scared to speak up. Whole life Democrats actually gave me $100 for my campaign when I ran in 2020. Shout out to them.
In the United States, the highest fertility rates per 1,000 women ages 15 to 44 during 2021 to 2023 average were to Hispanic women 64.4, followed by blacks 55.2, followed by whites 52.5.
What's the abortion rate?
Black women are having more babies, so
Whoa, you don't want
obviously
to Google that or ask AI?
it there's no more to it.
Over. Let's move on.
Your argument was that because of abortions, black women are having a harder time having children. The answer is black women have more children. What is there left to Google? That's it. It's
My
not
point is
true.
to question everything. So ask the computer, ask the machine about abortion now.
Well, we already know that that abortion was invented in order to try and stop black women from having children,
Let's
and
ask AI. What is
and
AI
they put
doing?
all of the and they put all of the abortion clinics in black neighborhoods to do so. This is not debatable. We already know that. But
Let's ask
the
AI though, just to be on the safe side. Humor me and your audience that's on my side right now. Who has the most abortions in America? Maybe that should be the question you ask the machine. What demographic? Well, back to quick, go to commercial. Something. Go!
oh, I just text you just made me text that to somebody. Sorry about that. I know you're listening.
So sounds that
You
sounds
you
like
hear
it.
my frustration with this conversation.
Well, let me actually look in the comments to see what our fans.
39.5 compared to 21 compared to 31 for white women. It's not that much higher. It's pretty close to white women, believe it or not. Hispanic women are way lower.
Well, who has the highest, Leo, you said?
Black, then white.
Well, now. Who
So,
knew?
so white women have more abortions than Hispanic women
Keep going.
by far.
And the black woman
Blacks
again?
is close. It's like a 4% difference. With white women, it's like a
Above
19. With
white
Spanish, it's like a
woman?
19%.
Above white woman or below white woman?
4% above white women,
Oh, let's move
but
on.
Hispanics are 19% less.
Okay.
So, like when they put crack into the neighborhood, into black neighborhoods,
Here we
to try
go.
and well, this is what happens.
Here
They
we
pump these
go.
things into the yes, it is how we go. They
Minority
pump stuff.
memory lane.
They pump stuff into the black neighborhoods to try and destroy the black neighborhoods, and it leaks out.
Of course, of course.
That's what happens. You
We're not
know,
going to talk about the abortion issue, just like the mainstream media is not talking about the abortion
we
anymore.
already
Oh,
discussed it.
that's
We already
strange.
discussed it.
But I'm talking about
Let's
the
get on. We
mainstream
got
media.
far more important, pressing matters that we have to
Bigger fish to
discuss.
fry.
We've already been going for like 45 minutes. Let's move on. Reclassifying federal workers to schedule policy career.
Yes.
So he went through. He was trying to cut jobs. He wasn't as successful as he at first endeavored to be. So now he's finding loopholes to do so. Schedule policy
No,
was
no,
it
no.
career.
No, no, no. He implemented this policy on his first administration until Joe Biden rescinded it. The next thing is I had a conversation with my colleague this morning, and she said, Dion, these people have to realize under every presidential administration, when they come in, they always fire people in bulk and bring in their own people in bulk, and vice versa, and cut and dice in that aspect. So just like Trump's predecessors, what's the big deal? People just don't like the way they go about it and how the media is reporting it on loop in your face. But it's a good thing people don't trust the media anymore, and we're not watching it anymore, and their ratings are going down, down, down. Pretty soon, Rachel Maddow will be fired. Mark my words. Oh, she'll resign.
So those numbers, the sheer numbers, are not relevant to you as a person that follows Donald Trump. The sheer numbers of people he's trying to get rid of are not alarming to you.
Well, yes, I'm gonna say it is alarming to me because again, the way he's going about it is one thing, but like I said before, this happens all the time. And like I said before, he did it under his previous administration. Just that he didn't know what he was doing, he had so much pushback internally and sabotage. But again, Joe Biden rescinded it, and then he let in all these damn people, and he spent so much money on COVID, hiring people for the government that became a problem and strain on our system. And here we are right now with President Trump, chop, 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 in a way.
There's never in the history of this country, possibly in the history, in written history, been so many people let go at such an enormously swift rate. I do believe Miss Levitt calls it Trump speed. As a matter of fact, he was doing it so fast that complete conservatives that had nothing but his back started pulling back. No, whoa, whoa, chill. Yeah, no, 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 no. Judges that were in his
And
pocket
that's checks and
climbed out his
balances.
pocket like
And that's checks and balances, Leo. Say it.
so. Even so, no one, even his own people, could accept the rate at which this was happening. It was, I don't know, what is the word? Wrong.
Well,
It was
now they have to bring bills to the floor to stop him. Once they do that, he does what? Vetoes it. And guess what they have to do back in Congress is they have to overturn the veto. And that's how the civics works per the per the Constitution.
all right. So
Why
here we
does the
go. Right.
media talk about that? Why does the media point the finger at Congress and say, hey, follow these procedures as we educate civically the public of how you exercise your rights with the Constitution? And
They
they
have been, and it's been pointed out time and time and time and time again that Elon threatened anybody that went against one of Trump's orders that he would put every dime he got into replacing them, shutting down his conservative Congress. And when the judges try to do something, he just ignores them. So everybody's afraid to make a move.
who says
And
that?
I think there's going to be dissension in the ranks because Elon's out. But we won't get to that. We
Well,
talked
there's
about that
already
last time, right?
dissension in the ranks thanks to the DNC, because you got the vice chair that wants to put 20 million up to primary all the non-progressive non-woke Democrats in a primary in safe states. So looks like it's happening over there too, because they're not going to stop Orange Man unless they get rid of those Democrats. Make sense?
I don't know what that had to do with anything, but it
No,
is
but you said
actually happening.
Elon Musk is scaring people because he's going to put money to primary the GOP. Don't fall in line with Trump. But I'm saying the DNC is doing the same thing with its Democrat memberships. They're going to pour money to primary certain Democrat leaders they feel aren't progressive enough to fight Orange Man, who's bad. See the correlation?
Can't argue that. That's fair enough. Both sides are doing it. All right, I'll go for that. What else we got? North Korea. So North Korea is putting Trump troops in Ukraine.
They already had troops there in the first place, but of course
Yes,
we
and then
know
they
about
said they
that.
pulled them out because they weren't fighting very well about 4 months ago.
Who said
And
that?
come to find out, there's Koreans in Ukraine.
Still,
Russia can't beat Ukraine, not by themselves.
not without using the nukes, maybe.
I mean, I don't think you want to nuke territory you want to take over. It might not be a good idea.
But certainly they could win the war if Putin presses that red button. I know that for a fact. It'll be over, said and
If
done.
he's trying to take territory, that's not winning. He lost. Because now the territory won't be occupied by Ukrainians. It just can't be occupied.
Well, unfortunately, in East
Something
Ukraine,
about
combined
radiation, radiators, or something like that.
well, anyway, so on the east side, the east side of Ukraine, they speak Russian. And just like Kazakhstan, which is Asian, but they speak Russian too, which is a culture shock. Those people, to my understanding, want to get back with Russia. So
I don't know if that's true or not. I've heard similar, but I don't. No, I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't speak Russian. I can't say. I do know that nuclear is not an option. Radiation lasts for 1,000 years. Um, it appears that Trump. it, appears, it appears that our great leader, the Mr. Make a Deal man himself, has come to the realization that possibly Putin doesn't really want peace and he's been pulling his leg, and that Putin might be lying. It apparently somehow something happened where Trump decided that maybe he's not brokering the deal he thought he was brokering. Now, I don't know why that was clear to everyone. As a MAGA person, is this something that you saw coming?
okay, repeat the question again. I was distracted by what's this person's name? In our chat, we have a person by the name RAF Khan, and he was talking about autism. So who knows who that person is? Well, shout out to him for supporting us. Now repeat that
Her.
question. I'm sorry.
Well, wait, what did she say about autism?
She said that her uncle had autism and was born in the 40s. So it's always been around. That's her point. My point is, I'm not questioning that. I'm just questioning the ratio that you said earlier, Leo, that there's more autism happening now as opposed to then. It's extremely increased. That's it. Look at this line graph, imaginary. That's invisible. Social
Okay.
media?
It appears that our great leader has come to the conclusion that possibly Putin has been lying to him, and perhaps he doesn't really want to call a truce, and it's all been a fake as he moves forward with his wars, doing the same thing that Bibi was doing, bombing schools. I think that was the one that did it. He bombed the school, and he was like, it wasn't a black school; it was a white school. So now it's a problem, right? Well,
Yeah.
listen, when Israel did it,
Ukraine
it was
was
all right.
Ukraine was trying to keep its Africans there. Remember how racist the Ukrainians were when they tried to stop all the Africans from escaping from the war and getting on the train? Who wants to talk about their right extremism based on Nazism? No one wants to talk about the right extremists of the Ukraine and how evil and racist they are. Back to Hitler, if you want to use Hitler and Nazis, huh?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
I'm talking about Ukraine. If you look up Ukraine and African citizens that tried to escape when the war first broke out and they denied them access on the trains and escape routes because they were African, you will actually see that the Ukrainians are actually white extremists that have believed in a lot of Nazi principles when it comes to our people and international policy. So why are we supporting that? But back to the Pope's death. Trump and Zelensky had a nice sidebar, and that was in the media. Now, remember, Trump is trying to talk his way to peace. That's why he's not doing tariffs with Russia. Make sense? In addition, he did stop what? American money and armaments and troops from going to Ukraine. So, once again, preserving American interest, money, and life, which is great. So, now let's say Putin did lie to the man. The man still wants Ukraine to pay us back and its resources and actually wants Ukraine to give Russia the land it's conquered. And that's the game plan President Trump has done with talking and the power of the pen. So I think he's doing great. Now, Putin lied to him about North Korea. Remember, Trump had a cool relationship with North Korea and Putin. So if they give back Ukraine to them, I'm sure that will smooth the relationship with all three parties and superpowers with nukes. So I'm happy.
So it appears that the vast majority of anybody in mankind had an inkling that perhaps Putin wasn't really ready to give up the war and that he was going to continue to push forward.
So
Trump has now come to that realization when Russia, while these talks were supposed to be going on for peace, decided to bomb school buildings in Ukraine. This epiphany that has suddenly occurred to President Donald Trump is amazing to me because I'm like, oh, you mean he's not in bed with him? He's just stupid. Did you see that coming as a
wait a
Trump
minute.
supporter?
The whole time you thought Trump and Putin were buddy buddy. Now all of a sudden that seems as though they're not. It's a problem. You want them to be buddy buddy again, don't you?
I just couldn't believe that the art of the deal guy could not see that. Like, that's remarkably unbelievable. You mean to tell me he really didn't know? Uh,
But guess
so
what? What is that? What does that have to do with America? Still, to this day, we're still in a good spot. If we pull out now from everything and say, yeah, you guys deserve each other, we're still good because guess what? There's no more American troops preserving America. There's no more American money. There's no more American weaponry going to Zelensky. So we're good. So why are you trying to prolong this war and instigate a fight? It makes no sense. We're still in a good spot. Zelensky and Ukraine's messed up, but not America. We're good.
so you're like, well, I'm glad he woke up, but did you see it coming?
No, did he? Don't. Well, no. Well, actually, you know what? I did because these things happen all the time. And either way, this is just words. Trump is just angry, but still, our vice president is actively involved, unlike the predecessor who hasn't been over there. So we dodged a bullet by not electing her.
That was a good way to
The flex?
deflect this the words. Like, pew! All right. So you're good with the situation, even though Trump seems to be completely in the dark. This art of the deal guy who's supposed to be making all these deals and saving America is not seeing something that's obvious to the layman doesn't make you nervous.
No. So far, again, pulling out our military bases, pulling out our troops, no longer being the parent and protector of the world or police of the world is great. Now Ukraine can make its own weapons. See how that easy that was?
All right,
And do what they want to do.
let's talk about some of the things that Trump seems to love to talk about that may or may not be so. For instance, he hired Vince McMahon's wife,
Limited
woo,
man, baby. Yeah.
to body slam the Board of Education because we're ranked 40th amongst all schools.
Mhm.
What if that's not so?
What if it's 13? Either way, I'm good because it still doesn't negate that we have a problem with the education system. Even though Trump embellishes and says all kinds of outlandish things, which we know he does because we know what we're dealing with, according to William Barr, it's okay because we're still wasting a lot of money in education with no results.
No results. So you don't think the educational system in this country works at all? That's why people come from around the world to go to our higher institutions of learning,
That's right.
institutions
This
of higher
racist
learning.
country full of supremacy and hate. Why would they want to come here? Our education, right? But that's on the collegiate level. But if you have international on the public school level, on the lower grades, it's one thing because remember, they have the culture to succeed in these institutions. Even if you're an Asian student in a failing school, you still will succeed because your parents still invest in your education and tutelage outside of that aspect and scope. And that's why specialized high schools, private school, and the school choice is so dangerous to the system. But thanks to Linda McMahon putting the $1 billion dream, not even Ted DiBiase can afford on the Department of Education, things will change. And Trump told her, put yourself out of a job, Linda. Get ready to do. So first thing, let's cut the fat. All you damn people making six figures spelling these kids is fired. That's a fact. We're gonna cut administrative costs because we know having four principals in one building for four schools making over $200,000 salary is not so good if the grades don't reflect that value. Trump is very big on ROI.
His business acumen seems to be very high. He does know how to get the most out of people, just don't pay him. So cutting jobs sounds like a good way not to pay people. This is his history up until he walked in the office. Up
But you
until
can't
the moment he
suffer.
walked in office with his own failing school where he robbed people by not giving them the education that they paid for. The
This is
moment, up
bigger than
until
Donald
the
Trump.
moment.
Failed schools have been there for decades since the Department of Education was implemented under Carter. Education has gone down instead of up since it
We're
started
talking
with
about Trump's
Trump.
school, the school that
I
he started.
understand, but that's what I'm trying to say, that this has nothing to do with Trump. Only that the fact that Donald Trump is trying to be a change agent, because again, just like public housing and public transportation, these things have been horrible before Trump got in office, maybe horrible after he gets in office if the Democrats get power again, but now he's going to address the issue. Just like Carter addressed the issue by creating the Department of Education, we have a president that said, hey, this didn't work. It was a waste of our time, money, resources. Back to the states, feds, we want to be out of it. Just like an abortion.
So we don't know the real statistics of how the schools are doing because Trump gives false numbers. And instead of trying to see if there's anything that can be done to improve the way the Board of Education
No
functions,
exploratory, no freaking no more internal review, none of that garbage. We're not wasting time, money. We're just gonna cut it, get rid of it, back to the states. Our hands have washed the system. If we don't want to talk about it, just get it done. That's the businessman of the executive officer of the United States talking. No more of that bureaucracy.
except for the fact that as soon as it benefited him, the very first thing he tried to do was use the same leverage to rewrite history, science, well, history and science so far. The history of what happened and how this country was put together, and science, because pollution doesn't kill people. You know, pollution doesn't kill people. Shots don't. Medicine doesn't help
Be
people.
that as it may, reading, math, and science, no matter what you cook in the curriculum, is still horrible. If every course was Black history in this country, that'd be great. But if the kids can't read it, comprehend it, regurgitate it on a standardized test, what was it? Just more feel good.
I don't know. The STEM system seems to work very well in the schools where I worked at.
For Black students,
The STEM program seemed to work very well in the schools that I worked at.
well, there's no more to be said.
And now we're talking about from somebody who had a little bit of experience teaching. Anyway, for the Board of Ed in a major city in Black areas, just for the record, and white areas too.
Let's get
And
ready.
guess what? They get the same curriculum if they're in the same city. Now they don't get the same. The schools are not the same. It is not a level playing field, and that's a problem.
I just
But that's not.
Harvard.
But Trump can't do anything about that. Giving
Well,
it
guess
back to
what?
the states only gives them more ability to
Guess
do the
what he
same
could
stuff they're
do?
doing now.
He could take the $4 billion federal money that goes to a private university like Harvard and then reinvest it into HBCUs. Doesn't that sound great? Because that's hopefully what he'll do because he did elevate the HBCUs for that purpose.
That is actually true. And when I saw it, you said that a few times. I'm like, yo, whatever. And then when I saw it, I'm like, yo, he's really doing it.
Looks like Donald Trump's not a liar all the time.
No, I listen. I was blown away. I'm very happy to see that. That was amazing. That was amazing. He's actually doing that. That's a fact. All right, we're getting closer to the heart of this. Got a couple of things we got to talk about. So every time they make an arrest, every there's child molesters being arrested that were immigrants.
Okay.
The numbers are staggering. Some might say they're unbelievable. Everybody they arrest ain't no damn child molester. Like, why do they think the American public's stupid?
Well, more often than not, they are. So you mean to tell me,
I
Lee?
can't argue that. Hold on. I can't
Exactly.
argue that.
That's why these people aren't to be trusted. These people don't know what's good for them. I know what's good for them. But back to the border. The point is this, that we all commonsensically, logically would know that human trafficking has been a problem internationally. So if you have an open border in the United States of America where everybody wants to come to this evil country, of course, human trafficking business would go through the roof because now it's easier to facilitate that. We all know, or should know, or at least have an imagination to know that there is a black market for organ harvesting and getting people over the border from countries that don't know how to speak English. So, for example, my girl in Ghana wanted to pay $30,000 to come here through the border. I was like, no, because who knows what could happen with any no safety regulations and the gangs and the cartels. So when they say child molesters and missing children was a thing into the tens of thousands. There are children that are missing and wanted to cross the border. Even under Barack Obama's administration said, hey, if you send your child across the border, we will send your child back. A lot of people don't put that in media because that's true for the deporter in chief who built the cages for this purpose. So that's what I got to say about that.
I will say this, working at the high school level, I can attest that the vast majority of the American population above the age of 18 doesn't have a seventh grade reading level.
You should look
Now,
at it.
I listen, this is a sad truth. Now, that's not black kids, that's not white kids, that's across the board. And there is a problem with the Department of Education where they're pushing kids through that can't read and do basic math.
Social promotion is back.
I would like to see some changes done. I don't know if dismantling the Board of Ed is the change that's going to work based on the fact that the Federal Board of Education doesn't create curriculums. That's done at the state level. It incentivizes some curriculums, but it cannot create and push a curriculum. So, with that being said, I'm not going to say that their Board of Education's really great because it has serious issues.
Mhm.
The biggest issue actually might be from the Board of Ed. The biggest issue is the No Child Left Behind because it's graduating children that can't read and write. Well, I had to give the other side of that coin before we move forward.
Pro Trump? So you think Trump is doing something good for a change?
No, I didn't say that. I don't know. I don't have the answer, but I don't know if
Let's wait
dismantling the
and
Board of
see.
Education.
3 months so far, Leo. Let's wait and see. Because Linda McMahon has a lot to do when she gives it the
She can't dismantle the Board of Education until she
freaking
changes Black history.
what?
That's his mandate. He needs to erase history. He needs to change history. He's changing.
What?
He's what is it? What did he call it? We talked about this last episode. It's no longer. Oh gosh, you're gonna make me look it up.
He's
Erase it
trying to
already.
bring back Christopher Columbus. I know he's obsessed with that.
Well, I'm glad to hear that since Christopher Columbus, if he existed, well, he did exist. He's never stepped foot in America. Christopher Columbus never stepped foot in America.
That has nothing to do with anything because that's a part of the cultural fabric of this country. So
Christopher
just because
Columbus.
you rip down the freaking statue of the Confederate Army across this country doesn't negate the fact of the historical fabric it has. The South will rise again. Remember that?
So the FBI arrested Judge Hannah Dugan
Mm-hmm.
for blocking deportations. So now we've already discussed the fact that attorneys are being
But that's it.
harassed.
But it's that.
Now judges are being arrested.
Be on
It's
attack.
almost like Donald Trump is trying
Exactly.
to scare anybody from helping immigrants. It's
Okay.
almost like he's trying to use intimidation tactics. How do you see it?
I see it as he's fulfilling his promise to American people that I will deport these damn people. But one thing that he didn't talk about was actually he did, I'm sorry. He wants to complete the wall because historically walls work. A lot of people don't know that. Another besides China, having a big gate and drawbridge and moat with alligators and sharks with the freaking lasers there actually prevents these kind of illegal immigration migrant issues. So yes, again, the American people voted, and this is the number one, maybe if not number two issue that was on the ballot box, and by majority of this damn country, and electoral college, and swing states, and increasing Congress. This is exactly what we want this man to do. So a lot of people aren't too shaken up about it, like we're supposed to, where we're being told that we should.
Let's talk about the biggest topic always:
Which one now?
money.
Oh,
The biggest topic, the one that got him in office, not immigrants, but money. So you don't think that more Americans was voted for him because he promised to bring the prices of eggs down than anything else?
all right.
Which the prices of eggs have come down, not since he's been in office, not since he's been in office. Well, since he's been in office, but
Here,
not since before he got in office.
here are the four issues. The reason this man won, okay? In the order I see it, number one, the water. Number two, these damn wars. Number three, economics, okay? What you're talking about. And number four, which is no boys and girls sports. And the Democrats, they want to die on the hill on their own sword if necessary. Three out of four of these issues: boys and girls sports, migrants, and one of these two. So pick your poison. But these two are very important. So they're going to die for immigrants. They're going to die to make sure that you get your gender affirming care at 3 years old, whether your parent likes it or not. So that's how I feel.
Insanity.
Yep, the
Listen,
Democrats are insane, boy.
all right, so maybe you're right. Maybe people didn't vote. Maybe people didn't vote because they wanted to, because they were worried about their pockets and money and inflation. Maybe that wasn't their biggest reason to vote. Maybe that's all in my head. But whatever. Anyway, so one thing he did do good is NVIDIA is now going to be building everything in America. NVIDIA is the largest chip company in the world. They make the chips that AI run on. NVIDIA is that company. It doesn't have a monopoly, but it has a monopoly on being the best in chip making. And all of their plants are going to be here.
Isn't
That
that
is
great?
one thing that Donald Trump succeeded in 100%. Congratulations, congratulations, Mr. Trump. That's a big win.
President Trump, like President Obama.
President Trump, big win. And China's hurting because China is pushing their own chips now, but it can't even come to the tier that NVIDIA was giving them chips, the level of chips that NVIDIA was giving to them, which is not the level of chips that they're capable of and what America was getting, but it's like two tiers down, and China still can't even do that. So bringing NVIDIA here, having them pure America, that's a win for America. Congratulations, President Trump, on that one.
Well, Chips Ahoy. Let's get it.
Zelensky Trump's meeting makes advances. We discussed that. You brought that earlier. So now let's get to it, right? In the media, they've been talking about for quite some time who's going to blink. Trump didn't blink. He started cutting tariffs in half without even speaking to Xi Jinping.
How do you know
he,
they're not speaking? How do you know they're not
he
speaking?
didn't blink. He started batting his eyelashes like he was flirting with him.
How do you know they're not
He's
talking?
like,
How
he
do you know they're
started
not
batting his
talking?
eyelashes. Yo, he didn't even have words on him. He was just like, "Yo, whatever it takes, I'm knocking off the rhetoric. I messed up. How can that possibly be good for America?"
Again, Number one, how do you know they're not talking behind the scenes? Number two,
Well,
how
Xi Jinping denies that. He says, I didn't talk with him. Trump is like, we're talking, we're talking. He's like, nah, bro, we ain't said
so
nothing.
we are supposed to believe China more than our own president now? So what's it going to be? Spider-Man, do you want to see Trump lose and China win? Or do you want to see China lose and Trump win?
It's not what I want to see. See, you're going by your heart. I want this to be. Instead, I'm sitting back examining the facts. And
Well, then
based
the
on the
facts are
evidence
this.
presented,
The facts are this. What reports are you hearing from Chinese companies on our mainstream media? What are they talking about? Are they feeling the pinch? What are the reports coming
absolutely,
out?
they're feeling it
What,
badly.
what are the reports talking about India actually taking on all that work that China can't do in America? And our business relationship with India is going through the roof, and other South Asian countries like Malaysia and Taiwan, and everybody else that came to sign up in America, that the industries are exploding right now. How come we're not talking about that?
Because in spite of Trump's blabbering on about 70 countries coming to him and offering deals, not one single deal was made. Trump lies a lot.
Again,
So
the problem is
in answer to your question, prior to Trump doing whatever he's trying to do now to back out of whatever he did with China, everybody knew that Trump was going to have to back down because we knew that China wasn't. See, here's the thing, right? So Trump was this great businessman. He was a huge fish in a very small pond. He was chomping these little fish up in the business world. Now he stepped to the big stage. He's president. He chomped them fish up on the way up. He even ate a shark. He chopped a little few of them piranhas. He nibbled at a whale. He got to I think her name was Kamala, and he got to the presidency. Now he's in the ocean, and there's big fish out there with him. He the biggest fish, but he ain't the only big boy on the block. And these guys negotiate very differently. You can't negotiate with someone who has the powers of a king the same way you do with another business. And anyone who understands these terms of engagement took one look and was like, nah, he's out of his depth. He's going to sink. And it's not what I want to see happen. It was the inevitability of the situation when looking at things through a particular lens. Call it critical thinking, where
point is this. Our president has 4 years, right or wrong. This guy, Xi Jinping, he could be there forever.
that's what I just
Our
said.
president, our president has our media against him, as well as our government against him, trying to undermine him at every cost for the same purpose.
Wait.
This guy doesn't
He
have
has
those
the Congress
problems.
under his pocket. He's not paying attention to judges. That's not true. But go on.
Okay, so let's just go with the mainstream media and propaganda machine that's trying to thwart him at every turn because he's evil and making China look like the greatest thing in the world that's winning this whole trade war, or to sway the public opinion against our president to make sure he looks incompetent and make sure he fails at all costs. Whereas this guy doesn't have those problems. But the one thing I hope that I said on the previous episode before is that, yes, I hope the mainstream media is playing a big role that Trump is using against this guy over here and playing the media very well to have the public and this guy believe all things you're saying, whereas the art of the deal, he's doing something else over here that the media is not reporting on. But this man knows is what all the business in South Asia that's happening right now that's benefiting America and hurting the Chinese economy and businesses behind the scenes that not even they're letting the public know. But this guy over here knows, and his people know what's going on. So that's what I hope is happening, whether the facts are being reported as such, but that's what I think is happening based on information
So
I
you think that this is some nefarious 3D chess game where Trump is holding all the cards and the American people are just not aware of what's happening right now?
because of the
If
mainstream media. Yes, I believe the American people, which we agree were stupid, don't know this information because our mainstream media and educational system keeps them as such. But the nefarious plan is to make sure Orange Man loses at all costs, even at the expense of American interests. That is a fact, and it's called Trump derangement. But the information we get over here in our silos, which is becoming more people getting pushed over here, like Bill Maher and the rest of the gang, we actually know what we're talking about. And that's information I'm privy to.
Bill Maher said that Donald Trump knew that he lost the election. So if that's somebody in Donald Trump's corner, we're in worse trouble than
But,
than I
what did the
feared.
Democrats do to Bill Maher after he met with Trump? What happened to what did they do to him? They tried to
Bill Maher said Trump knew he lost the election. That means the insurrection
that's
was
not the point.
all.
The point is Bill Maher coming over to our side now because he's being pushed out because he had a conversation with
Bill
him.
Maher's not going to come over to the insurrectionist side if he believes Trump lost the election and Trump admitted to him. He's not going to do that because that would mean that Trump just tried to overthrow the country, and confirmation bias will have deniers saying no. We have China shuts down 90% of oil to US. China, okay, so the United States makes more oil than anybody or has more oil than most countries. That's actually true.
How come we don't know that? And we think it's Iran and Iraq
We
and
do not have the capable, our oil is different from other oil. What it takes to refine American oil compared to what it takes to refine oil from other countries is we would have to redesign all of our factories. Factories are not built to refine oil the way it comes out the ground here. That's the reason we buy oil from other countries such as China.
China. But they're buying their oil from Canada. I think that's the point you were trying to make, right?
Well, they shut down 90% of the oil they're supplying to America. America is getting hurt in multiple ways. China is not, I mean, we're China's biggest buyers. Like they export to
It's
US.
bad, Leo. Say it. That is bad to be dependent on China. Isn't that a bad thing?
That's definitely not a good thing.
Exactly. So
Definitely.
obviously, Donald Trump is onto something, just like dismantling the Department of Education. The Department of Education is bad, isn't it, Leo? Our kids are suffering, especially the black kids. Would you agree? That's bad. Donald Trump is doing something.
See, well, that's where you're wrong. It's not especially the black kids. And that's the problem.
Our children overall.
See, so here's the thing. It has nothing to do at all with race. Nothing
But
to
then
do with
you
race.
people always make it about age and historical more memory lane concept of slavery and crack epidemic and this and that.
No, well, that's because all that's true too. Two things can be true at the same time. But when it comes to education, it's class. If you have more money, you get a better education. If you don't know that, then I can't help you.
Well, then yes, the Department of Education in New York has the most in the entire country. So obviously our education should be good based on your logic, because we do have more money and we're spending it on the kids, right?
And the kids that live in the wealthy areas of New York get some of the best education in the country, right? While the people that are in the impoverished areas get
Well,
some of the worst.
is that Donald Trump's fault? Because he was trying to destroy that with a concept called school choice.
So then the Federal Board of Education isn't the problem. The allocation within the state is kind of the point. But we're going backwards. Factories are closing all over China. Alibaba's up in Xi Jinping's face, like, yo, what are you doing? Because
Exactly.
we buy from Alibaba, man. I don't know about you, but I mean,
Amazon. I mean, I was privy to conversations as a business owner because a lot of people in the should be business owners, not nonprofit owners, by the way. They actually are trying to catch up with Amazon in this country because the problem is Amazon is a threat to Alibaba, and Alibaba with this trade war it will hurt extremely much because they want to do business with America, and this is preventing them. So a lot of companies in China outside the scope of their government really hate this because they can't do business with America no matter what. That's why some of them are breaking and saying, you know what, China, I'm going to build my company over there in America or one of the other Asian countries like India, and we're going to try to make it happen that way. So they're trying to get out of the communist second world country.
so the trade war is hurting both countries. That's inevitable. That's kind of what a war does. Nobody walks away unscathed.
And there's no atheists in foxholes.
But here's the real
Shout out to
problem.
Jesus. I think
Here's
it's
the real
Orthodox.
problem.
Easter now, Orthodox versus Sunday. Let me see.
So if the United States are the consumers, right?
Yep. It
And
was last Sunday, 20th.
so China stops exporting to the United States,
Okay.
right? We can't, we don't buy from them anymore, and we hurt their pockets, and their companies start going out of business.
Mhm.
Eventually, they find other people to buy from, but people can't manufacture fast enough to supply the United States. They can't compete with China. We lose goods.
Don't
Our
you think
prices
we'll catch up?
skyrocket.
Don't you think we're going to catch up eventually?
Not before inflation buries most people.
Well, we already have inflation and we've come back from that. And as you can see, with stagflation and the way Trump is handling it, I think we'll be fine. And if you ask the American public, even on this side, it's like, you know what? We don't believe that media anymore. I think we're going to be fine. It's only the third month. Let's wait and see what happens.
Is that really what y'all believe?
Yes. Ask ABC when they ask their
You know the scariest
don't you
part?
don't you regret your vote? Don't you have buyer's remorse in Donald Trump? No. No, that's not the answer we want. Get somebody else. Even Don Lemon, I'm surprised, interviewed a transgender person in New York and they say, yeah, I like Donald Trump. I'm good with him. I was like, wow, Don, you want to put that on social media because you lost all your followers when you got fired? But wow, that's amazing. You aired that one.
I'm I don't know where to go with this. So
Exactly, because you know I'm right. People over
know
here
that
do
you're
have
right.
buyer's remorse. Do they? Are we a cult? Or we just know to see through the mainstream media and its reports and look at our factual information amongst ourselves because we communicate amongst ourselves with our media and I believe them because they've got it wrong so many times and lied to the American public too many times.
One of the things, the biggest problem I have with the Board of Education
Well, here we go again.
is that people graduate high school without a real fundamental understanding of economics. And I'm no economist, bro.
That's
I'm
good
I'm,
for
I'm piss poor at
education.
math. Hey, RAF Khan was in there. She could tell you high school. I shouldn't have made it out. I barely didn't. I got kicked out of the school she was in, as a matter of fact.
Damn, that Queen's education system.
Oh, yo, I am not good at math. But basic economics is something I remember from that very same school, Martin Van Buren. Shout out. And we really have to have an understanding as a people, a basic rudimentary understanding of how global economics affects our pockets when it comes to something as simple as a tariff. The things that I last time we was on, I literally showed you pictures of prices about the skyrocket where people didn't understand what was going on, and places like Costco are like putting up warning signs. Prices are going up tomorrow. Put They're putting up warning signs.
But guess
This
what?
is so bad.
You said it earlier. People don't understand how economics works. Therefore, in their mind, they don't see any problem with what Donald Trump's doing, no matter how many warning signs there are around them, because people are disconnected to those warning signs because they've been proven to be wrong for the past 4 years. So if there was an economic crisis, sadly, it's the mainstream media's fault that these things aren't working to wake people up because they just don't believe them anymore. You could be 1,000%,
Even when the
you know,
stores
you
themselves
could
are
be a
like, yo,
thousand.
tomorrow the prices are going up.
That means nothing. Again, public opinion is not swaying the way it needs to. His popularity is still at 40 something percent, even though it drops, because people just don't believe you anymore. Not you per se, but the you
No,
out
I
there.
understand.
Good luck.
S&P 500 dropped more than any president in the history since it was invented. I don't know. 14%. I mean, under Bush Jr., everybody remember George W. It dropped 7%, which was the biggest drop in history. Trump doubled that. It dropped 14%.
During
It is
COVID,
Trump has hurt the economy worse than any president ever by double. I'm laughing. This is crazy. But like stocks is something people understand. The stocks dropping, double
You know what? That
digits.
language doesn't work on noble folk. Just like oligarchy and all this economic stuff, all this tough talk and big words don't work on the common man, if you will. So that's why the public is down with Trump, because the stuff that people are talking about is either beyond them, doesn't care, or doesn't affect them. How many regular folks invest in stocks, Leo? So of course not. They're not business owners. These things aren't real time and as evil as the media makes it, because it's so out of their scope and realm real time. Whereas the subway system is broken, the Department of Education is broken, public housing is broken. They see the migrants real time, even though the media says it's not a problem. They see crime real time and murder rates, even though the media tells us not to that's happening. And that's why people are going about, you know what? I think I'm gonna take my chances with Uncle Trump.
I don't think the vast majority, well, 40% means that the majority of America is not with him.
What about the other? What about the marginal error? Hmm? Are they including the Republican right-wing extremists in the survey, or just the liberal cities to prove that point? Data can be skewed. Remember that bias word you said earlier?
That's actually true. Can't argue that. Can't argue that. So we have to, so you're saying that people are going to feel this way. All Trump supporters are going to feel this way until they go in and be like, wait a minute, prices went up.
Most of America is going to feel this way, is what I'm saying. Because remember, those 44%, are they all Trump supporters? A few such supporters, or no Trump supporters in those polls, which people don't believe anymore? Remember, is MAGA the majority of the country because of the election results? Or is it sprinkled with some of those normal people from the blue team and beyond, the independents that still vote blue no matter who? So my question again, Leo, does the most of the country hate this? And is most of the country MAGA?
I think most of the country's about to hate what's happening here. I'm
You
going
beat
to
it
my
too
last
early.
point here.
You
I
beat it
guess
too.
speaking is economic, so it'll bore people. But
Yeah.
Germany, France, and Denmark shut down 1.5 trillion in the auto industry. They're not buying cars anymore. They're just like they're not. Germany, France, and Denmark are, the people that never bought cars from us now are not buying cars from us. You go to Germany, you won't see an American car. Now they're not going to buy American cars. France, Denmark, and the EU plans on retaliating if these tariffs aren't lowered. If we can't come to some kind of deal by putting tariffs on bourbon, meat, dairy products, wines, and clothing, valued at 21 billion euros, which happens to be greater than the USD, the American dollar. So the United States is getting hit hard
Okay.
and about to get hit a lot harder.
Mhm.
They're literally sitting in the corner, taking the tape off their gloves, like U.S. pulling the glove off, putting it to the side.
Mhm.
We really want to be nice and talk this out and work this out. Unwrapping the other hand, but take the glove off. If you want to do this, we can fisticuff.
But guess what? They still need us to be the parent and protector of the world. So, as a result, we have other ways besides tariffs, like removing our military bases and funding into those countries in various ways. So, again, remember what Trump's international
But Trump's
policy
doing
is?
that anyway, so the
F
threat's not on the table if he's doing it
A
already.
F O. You see, the more you fuck around, the more you're gonna find out. So let's just wait and see. We're going into month 4 now. So remember the diagram, you see, it goes upward. FAFO.
So again, he's already threatened to do these things. He's already pulling back and ending negotiations and treaties, pulling out of NATO. He's already doing these things.
Okay.
That's not going to change anything. You can't see that's the same thing he did when he was trying to use tariffs as a threat to anybody who joined BRICS or dealt with BRICS as far as forming a currency. He said 100% tariffs on anybody who does it. And then he went on and said tariffs on everybody. You can't threaten to do, and then pause. You your threats become like you're a toothless tiger. Is that how it's said? Like, yo, he's been defanged. Vampire without any biters. Trump is like he's not. His threats are not going to be relevant. He's doing these things already anyway.
So then these countries have nothing to worry about. Let them keep fucking around. So that way, the more they're going to find out.
So, in conclusion,
Yes.
you seem to be very happy with the fact that Trump is backing down from China right now.
Let's say that. I'm happy that the media is continuing to talk to a desensitized audience that's not believing them and their ratings are going down. Now, again, if you look at it from media outside of this scope, maybe on this side with the Fox News, the News Nations, the Newsmax, the Substacks, the Laura Loomers, and the what's this guy Scott Jennings and what he has to say, you may actually take a look at a WhatsApp group or a Telegram or a Signal. See what actually is going on in China. Look at YouTube. Some of these things with China right now and how much they're hurting. Let's compare that to what we're being told here in our country. Then you'll see and have to admit, even on your platform, which is good, by the way, independent media, that it's just one big propaganda machine to make our president look silly and weak. But if he does, that still hurts us and makes us more dependent on China. Remember, the people that are hurting are the billionaires and millionaires that the Democrats supposedly hate, even though AOC and Bernie Sanders fly private, even Tish James flies private, but she wants to convince you that they're coming for you and they're evil. They want to convince you that, hey, you need to be on more public assistance while they're eating fine steaks in Florida. So the point is this. Hopefully, our president will win this trade war, tariff war, and we all be winners with him, like it or not. Because if China wins and they control the world, the economy, that's bad for everybody. So either you hate Trump and you want to see China win despite Trump, or you want to be like me and you want to see China lose and let Trump have his day and we all win. And that's how we're going to make America great again.
So here's the problem.
Okay.
You're telling me what you want, and what I'm saying is that anybody can that's standing and being objective can look
How?
and see
From where? What media source? What information source? What site?
all of it. You don't take one side. You take all of it and you look and you
Hey,
say,
we don't believe Google. We don't believe in CNN. We don't believe in MSDNC. We don't believe in the major media outlets shouting at us. We're getting our own independent media. I recommend DuckDuckGo kind of, but I also recommend Microsoft Bing as your search engine, or actually go to some outside international media sources like YouTube with actual independent media like us. Say Says, Black Conservative Perspective, Doc Rich, the African Diaspora News Channel, and more. LFR Family Group, TD Media. Some of these Black YouTubers are great exposing all this information. And the thing is, more Black independent media is increasing now that the Roland Martins, the Joy Reeves, the Don Lemons, and the rest of our media gatekeepers have been lying to us and towing water, carrying weight for the blue team. So that's the media sources I try to go by, and they're very informed.
I listen to them and I listen to others. I try and listen to everybody because everybody's going to have their own biases. And if you don't listen to both sides, you're only getting one side. And the fact that you don't listen to both sides is something that I see sometimes. You know, it's the truth. Like I listen to both sides. That's why if you look at the comments, some of the stuff I'm talking about, what you ask me, where did I get it? And I tell you, you don't remember. It's because I listened to both sides. And you're like, oh, well, the other side doesn't talk about stuff like that. I don't know what one side talks about because I listen to everybody because I don't trust either of them.
But broken clock is right, what, twice a day?
So they say. I I have I look at Donald Trump and I take out my lens and the lens is just an unbiased lens and just look at the overall picture.
Is that right?
The overall picture. It's the overall picture. Overall picture.
So
I
let's
look
go
at
down 5 things that Trump has done good so far.
I do that at least every episode.
Well, let's review for the end of the episode for the outro. Name 5 things Donald Trump has done great.
He stands by his people. I'd have to go through the list. I don't remember. I don't remember. I just the overall picture is of Donald Trump. Before he got into office, he was a businessman.
Okay,
He ripped off a lot of people.
sure.
He got into office then. He
Yes.
made it in by the skin
2016.
of his teeth.
2016.
In 2016, he came in, he beat out a bunch of people that, when he beat Hillary, it was he beat a bunch of
Remember,
people.
back then, the Republicans and Democrats hated him because he took out the Bushes and the Clintons in the same year. So go on.
That was pretty badass.
Oh,
He
that's
did,
still 2 things you like about Trump. Keep going.
he runs that. He's from New York. Gotta love that. He says whatever comes to his mind. He doesn't have a filter. He says it. He doesn't care.
Come on, Booker T, you can do 5 times, 5 times, 5 times.
Something good
Come
about
on.
Donald Trump. His good taste. He says a lot of nice things about people he likes. The way he flatters people, everybody's wonderful. They're attractive. He's very flattering. But the big picture is that's part of his con artistry.
God.
It is. He's a Gemini. He's a smooth talker. I get it. You know,
That's all we have today, folks.
no, he comes in. He lies about everything. He exaggerates. I don't care about the exaggerations. That's fine. I'm in wars on day one. Nobody believes that. I mean, some people might have believed it, but educational level and all that. And education has nothing to do with it. Just he's a smooth talker. He's one of the greatest talkers, delivery men to ever walk the face of the earth. He's definitely, if he's not the number one in the world, he's in the top five. Without question, the man he can walk, he can talk. The man can talk. He can sell you ice in Antarctica. Like that man can sell. Can he make a deal? He is not, he doesn't have America's best interests in mind. Donald Trump is about Donald Trump. And I think that's fairly obvious when you just step back through that unbiased lens, take a look, and just look at him from day one to now. He doesn't care who he hurts. He has to come out on top. Right now, these tariffs are not for the American people. Anybody who believes they're for the American people is not looking at Donald Trump for Donald Trump, because Donald Trump has never done things for other people. Donald Trump does things for Donald Trump. His own family members will tell you that. He's not a good person. He's not a bad person. He is a bad person for the position he's in. He's hurting the world. And Americans are about to really, 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 really hurt
I'm
because
very
of these tariffs.
disappointed. I'm
These
so
tariffs are bad. And so when you take a look and see all of that, it's easy to see what's going to come next. People are going to turn on him as soon as they can because they don't really like him. They have to deal with him. He threatens them to keep them in position. He gives them a lot of good stuff. And, you take
that's
good care of your people, they're going to have your back. But as the walls come crumbling down around him and
uh,
people scurry off because that's what's going to happen,
is it?
yeah, people are going to turn on him. People that really have his back and be like, yo, we got to do something because this is bad. Kind of like they did with the tariffs when it was like, yo, um, let's put a pause on. And they put the pause on, and he had his man testifying in front of Congress. There isn't going to be no. Wait a minute. Wasn't you? What was you saying? I said there's going to be no pause. Like while he was testifying, there was going to be no pause in front of Congress. And that's the scary thing about Donald Trump. Like he was just there's going to be no pause on tariffs, and then he puts the pause on while the man that's in charge of the tariffs is testifying that there won't be a pause. This is scary. The uncertainty that develops is remarkable. And it means that we don't know what he's going to do next because he doesn't know what he's going to do next. And if he's planning that and he's planning on making his people look stupid like that, that's even worse. There's no good side to this. The only thing that's for certain is that tariffs are causing an increase in prices. Some people call that increase in prices, what do they call that? Inflation. He's causing an increase in prices. We're using big words, stagflation, inflation. He's causing prices to go up. And that's what's happening right now. And that's bad. And he's doing it for something that can't happen because people in the United States are not going to go back to working in factories. This isn't China. That's why China can do that. That's why China manufactures, because
That's right.
Americans,
We need our slaves because if we don't have slavery, this whole government economy will go down, right? So we gotta keep the slavery game in motion. I'm just saying.
indentured servitude is going to happen at some point or another to
What
somebody
happens?
because somebody's going to do the work.
Somebody,
Somebody's going to do the work.
we need our legals here. We're not going to do that job, Dion. We need our legals.
Somebody's got to do the work. And unfortunately, as it's been proven, people think they're too good for certain jobs. I challenge you to go in a factory and just screw in a nut on top of a bolt at your station for 8 hours a day,
But
6 days a week.
Guess what? We already had migrants here for that purpose. Immigrants, not migrants, immigrants who are working towards their American citizenship, those jobs. Guess what? Even them they don't like the migrants. So the immigrants don't like the migrants because the migrants are taking immigrant jobs that we won't do, supposedly.
I challenge you, Dion Powell, to go and sit in a factory 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Oh, you got a vacation. 48 weeks a year and screwing a nut on a bolt at your station.
No diddy.
No diddy. I mean, and you know, Peter Griffin. Peter Griffin from Family Guy.
Okay.
A job like his, I mean, you got people that can do that job, but the vast majority of Americans are not going to do that job. And that's why, I mean, and we need that kind of work being done. You know, but it won't come back. AI is going to be controlling robotics and the robots are going to do it. Same thing is happening in the Amazon warehouses as we speak. People are losing their jobs and robots are doing these jobs. Right now, if we were going to be doing that, we would need to be training people to do those jobs, and we're not doing that. He doesn't have a game plan. We're not training people to do the jobs he's trying to create. Them jobs are not going to be here till after his presidency is
like
gone.
a Department of Education issue, isn't it?
Those jobs are not going to be here till after he's gone. Is the next president going to keep pushing for them jobs? That's why people are hesitant about bringing in factories here because they're like, when the next president comes, them tariffs going to disappear and can we have stayed where we was at? Do we put billions of dollars into building a factory we're never going to use? Is he going to change his mind tomorrow?
Well, that's why these people are coming over here to make their microchips and some others. It's just month 3.5, Leo. There's 3.5. So far, the stuff that you're spouting, the people like me don't believe. So, what is your game plan to persuade us otherwise or to scare us otherwise?
Wait another 2 weeks and let you keep seeing the prices in grocery stores. I've shown you pictures. If you don't believe prices are going up.
Still not scared stupid. But we'll see in 2 weeks if you guys manage to do it.
It might be an exaggeration. I mean, prices have already started going up. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm going to get out of here. You want to tell people who you are and how they can reach you for your business purposes. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. joining the conversations. We definitely can use more people talking to us and other perspectives. Please like, share, subscribe. Helps us in the algorithm. Other people can see what we're talking about and join in. I see Dion's gotten quite distracted. I'm gonna let him tell you about it and I'm gonna sign out.
Well, I'm just looking at our 3.5 thousand subscribers. So I'm very proud of that, Leo. Thank you for investing in this project. And yeah, so I'm the 78th Assembly District Leader, Dion Powell, here in the Bronx County of New York State. You can find me at Dion at NY Consultant, singular, not plural, if you know what that means, .us. Dion at nyconsultant.us. Hit me up. I'm on Facebook, Dion Powell. I'm on Instagram. You can find me there. And I'm also on Twitter X. You can find me there, LinkedIn, and True Social. Wah.
Huh. I thank you. I hope you enjoyed. And this is LC. I'm signing out.